Good afternoon, and welcome to the Extra Mile for today, May 28th, 2020. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr., and we're doing a cold open today. If you've seen the news, you may understand why. This isn't a death pertaining to racing, but this is an incident with wide-ranging consequences that is even bigger than racing that we cannot ignore at this time. A video was released showing that 46-year-old George Floyd was held down on the ground and with the 4 police officers in the Minneapolis Police Department on top of him. One of those officers had their knee on Floyd's neck. That pressure made it extremely difficult for Floyd to breathe, and eventually Floyd would succumb due to the officer's knee being on his throat. That has set off days of riots in Minneapolis for reasons that, while we cannot say are good, there are reasons that no one should be surprised about. As everyone knows that has listened to this show by now, I take racial issues extremely seriously for obvious reasons. And the issue of police brutality when it comes to the African Americans and the police department has been a sticking point for decades. It is at this point that for anyone watching on the outside, that there is an open season on African Americans when it comes to police departments. Just in the past couple of years, there have been dozens of cases of African American men, women, and in a couple of unfortunate cases, children that have been murdered. And we are going to call it as it is, murdered by police with no repercussions to the officers that have committed those crimes. While it is of my journalistic oath to be neutral at this time, given my race and that the fact that these cases affect those that look at me, it would be a travesty of my oath to stand neutral as police departments around this country indiscriminately kill African Americans with no recourse. There is something that needs to be done. A major purge of every police department in this country must be undertaken, and the training of officers needs to be changed dramatically so that cases like this do not happen ever again. The individuals that committed this crime must be brought to justice, tried, convicted, and punished to the highest extent of the law. Anything short of what I just said will be a grand disservice to African Americans and the Floyd family, and will only further divide a country that has been divided by race for over 400 years. And there may be some people that do not agree with this. At this point, I do not care. I do not care for any supposed other side of the coin of this issue. There is no other side of the coin. African Americans are being murdered by the police, and it needs to stop. And that is all I will go further to say at this point. And at this time, we're going to take a moment of silence for Floyd, and then we will get into the show proper. Thank you. And with that, we will start the extra mile properly. My name is Earl Kinsey Jr. Caitlin Seam is my co-host for tonight. No Michael this evening. Special guest Annika Carter will join us at 8:15. This is a woman that has driven about anything that has four wheels on it. And we're going to have a lot of fun talking to her. But unfortunately, we had to do something extremely serious dealing with the Floyd, the murder of George Floyd. We're going to call it what it is. I'm going to welcome Caitlin in. Caitlin, it's been a fun week. We're going to transition from that to talk racing now, as difficult as that may be with this case that has happened. We've seen the midweek races in NASCAR now, and for the most part, they've been a hit. The Cup race last Wednesday was extremely entertaining, as I said on Two Wheel Tuesday on WBGR Sports. The truck race yesterday and the Xfinity race had great finishes. I think at the start I was skeptical on midweek races, but now that we've been forced to have midweek races and now actually seeing them in action, I'm a fan. What do you think?
You mean when they at least actually happen and weather doesn't get in the way?
Yeah. See, that's the tough part about these races. And everyone that's listening, if you're not currently watching the Cup race, which ironically right now is under a rain delay, the weather is not like this. I don't know where these tropical storms came from. Like the Darlington one we knew about. I swear, God is my witness, Bertha showed up the day of the Cup race. Because we were not talking about a storm until like Wednesday. They're like, Tropical Storm Bertha is here. I'm like, Tropical Storm what?
Who?
And like it hits Charlotte that day, rains all day on Tuesday, so the race gets jumped. No, it rains all day yesterday, I'm sorry. Race gets moved today. There's remnants from Bertha, apparently, that has stirred up the tropics and caused this storm. We can't catch a break when it comes to the weather.
At all.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you are in a drought, send NASCAR.
Yes.
And you will no longer be in a drought.
No. We brought rain to the
It's kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
Because, even they'll be in Arizona, where it hasn't, rained in, 4 months, and they will literally get rain on the race. And you're just like, where did this even come from? What's going on? I don't understand.
You're just sitting here and you were waiting for racing, and Mother Nature's like, no. So we've been fighting the rain bug. It feels like even more than usual, and it's even more frustrating because we haven't had NASCAR for 8 weeks, and now we get it back, and now the weather decides to act up. You had 8 weeks to do this.
And I feel like it's more pronounced when it's in this situation, because it's day, and it's just the string of rain. It's not like a random pop-up shower right now. It's actual, tropical storms.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, technically it really wouldn't even be an issue if they would have stuck to, the regular schedule, because we got a little bit of rain to deal with, on Sunday, but it wasn't really that big of a deal. But, they wouldn't be there right now. So rain at Concord at the racetrack wouldn't be an issue at this point. So I think that almost heightens it a little bit more.
Honestly, I think it would still rain.
Probably. I was just trying to help.
I don't care. It's just, with NASCAR's luck, we could have a race in the Sahara Desert and it would rain. I don't know why we're racing in the Sahara Desert. We're just there. Don't ask me to explain the analogy anymore. But we could have a race in the Sahara Desert and it would rain. Torrentially. Because that is NASCAR's luck the past 5 years when it comes to weather.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely not on the good side of things.
No. And I remember, what was this? I gotta try and think. I think it was 2010, where during the summer, we went through a rash for 3 weeks of races that ran on Monday because of rain. including Watkins Glen, because we didn't have the rain tires at Watkins Glen for the Cup Series, which was odd. So, the weather has just been funny. But when we did get to race, it was exciting, and Chase Elliott has been on the poop end of the stick for 2 of the Cup races, because Wednesday gets taken out by Kyle Busch, and then on Sunday, he's leading with 2 to go. His teammate blows a tire, and then Caitlin, they decide to pit.
Lol. But here's the thing. Being the leader, you are stuck in the worst position there. Because I almost guarantee if he would have stayed out, everybody else would have pitted. And he would have been annihilated.
I don't know.
In my humble opinion.
I think you got to try and stay out. Because for that race, on new tires with the Coke 600, you could stay out.
It worked out for Keselowski.
It worked out for Joey Logano earlier as well, because you could stay out for about 5 laps before, obviously, the leaders would end up taking you over, the guys with newer tires. He only needed 2. He only needed 2 laps. And they bring him down to pit. And the sad part about it is he ends up finishing second. So it almost worked. He just didn't have enough laps. And honestly, if they had another green, white checker restart, Chase Elliott wins that race. But it just seems to be how things are working out for him right now. It's just problems continue to happen. And then he ends up winning the Cup race. Not Cup race, wins the truck race on Tuesday and ends this terrible bounty idea before it even gets started, which I think we were all happy about, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to talk about the bounties a little bit later. But you think that's sweet for Chase that, you know, Kyle started that mess on Wednesday and then he gets to beat Kyle at his own game, which apparently is the Truck Series on the Tuesday?
In a childish way, I guess, yeah. Like, I could see it being, you know, during, like, the Cup race, I think it would have been more justification. But it's the truck race, where Cup guys just go to beat up innocent victims. So, I don't know how proud you can actually be about it. Like, good for you. You did beat Kyle Busch, I mean, which is always exciting, but you literally beat up the kindergartners and you're in 8th grade. Like, that's kind of the equivalent. So I just don't know how, like, proud and happy you can be about that.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. We're going to take a break real quick, though, because we have a guest coming up in a minute. Annika Carter is joining us. She's a driver and a racing coach, and she has driven about 1,000 different race cars. We're going to talk to her on the other side of this break. We're going to come back here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Were you listening to a great game on USRN, but then the Wi-Fi crashed in the final seconds? Or do you simply want to listen to the best calls we here at USRN have to offer? Well, then you need to go check out our Audio Boom page. It holds a collection of our best calls that you don't want to miss. How do I get there, you ask? You can download the Audio Boom app and look up Ultimate Sports Radio, or simply go to audiobook.com/Ultimate Sports Radio. And as always, thanks for listening and making USRN one of the most talked about sports networks on Mixler.com.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on IE Sports Radio, so come home, Get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
Hey, what's up, sports fans? You're looking for a different type of sports talk show, something you haven't heard before? You got to check out the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday on 2 Live Stews Radio, 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Sports talk at its finest. Always have great guests, playing some good hip-hop. You don't want to miss it. Make sure to tune in to the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern.
Here comes the pitch, and it comes in wide.
On the BS3 Sports Show.
Welcome to the BS3 Sports Podcast. We hope your experience with us is amazing. Sports talk, comedy, social issues, and more. BS3 is the best source.
Hi, I'm Brian McLaughlin. In the National Football League, there are approximately 17 million total fans.
I'm Andrew Guzman. My Dallas Cowboys make up almost 9 million of those fans.
And my Seahawks have a very loyal fan base of around 4 million.
That's more than 3/4 of all the fans.
That's absolutely correct, Andrew. And on the Common Ground Football Podcast, we'll be talking about the good, bad, and the ugly of these teams.
We'll have weekly picks, discuss transactions, injuries.
And we'll chat about the rest of the league, too.
Blake freaking Bortles?
Oh, yes. And Captain Andrew Luck.
Excellent. What about Fitzmagic?
Oh, let's not get carried away now.
Oh, all right then.
Join us each week at commongroundfootballpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcast.
It's going to be
awesome.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Rate, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. They're coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And you can catch that show, you can catch Gloves Off and all of our IE Sports Radio programs here on Spreaker, on Spotify, as well in other places where podcasts can be heard. Welcome back to the Extra Mile here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We're still waiting for Annika Carter to call in, and while we wait, we're going to go on and continue with a couple of conversations that we were going to have. One of those is Hendrick Motorsports, where, Caitlin, they have been strong. Like the first 250 miles of these races, and then the last 50 miles, everything goes to crap. We saw what happened last week at Darlington 2, at the Coke 600. They were all running up front in the top 6. Everything was going great. William Byron blows a tire. Jimmy Johnson ends up getting disqualified. Chase ends up finishing second. Bowman stays out. That doesn't work. He ends up falling all the way to 20th. It just feels like the Hendrick magic of the first 10, or the last 10 years, or at the beginning of the turn of the century, rather, It's trying to come back, but it seems like they keep breaking windows or stepping under ladders or something because they have zero racers' luck.
It's almost like the Phoenix rising from the ashes, but a little bit like it got remixed. Because they like rise from the ashes, but then they fall back into them. Because they have, you're right though, they have been impressive. And I actually even talked about it on my show earlier today about how the beginning of these races, they're looking like the old Hendrick again. Like they're looking like they're the old team once again. And then something happens and they just can't close on it. So they're getting there though. They're looking much better than they were for a handful of racing seasons. They haven't quite gone over the hill yet, but they are certainly looking a lot better than they have in recent years.
They really have, because the last couple of years, they looked terrible. As really the whole Chevy camp did, because the cars weren't that competitive. They changed the front nose in those Corvettes, and all of a sudden, Hendrick Motorsports is back up front. And like I said on the broadcast with USRN, it's funny how a facelift all of a sudden made these cars a whole lot more competitive. And I know they're happy about it. I know they're happy that they're running well. They just want the finishes, especially for Jimmy Johnson. Because Jimmy Johnson has not won a race in 102 races. We've probably talked about it ad nauseum at this point. He almost had that race in the bag, and then he gets disqualified, had to start 40th. He's currently 22nd, I believe. I have to check the leaderboard as they just made pit stops at Charlotte. Currently, they're all sitting in their motorhomes doing interviews with Fox Sports on the worst Skype cameras I have ever seen, by the way.
I mean, I think it makes Joey Logano look a little bit nicer, to be honest.
I can see every pixel in Joey Logano's stream right now.
It's pretty funny. It's like if Minecraft was in NASCAR.
I know these guys have decent cameras. I'm going to put it up when it's just I'm going to put it up and say it's just the Wi-Fi reception or something at Charlotte's not good, because
maybe they're using a hotspot.
I know these guys have decent cameras. They make enough money for it. And
that's funny.
Oh, this is... Look, I'm not going to talk about anybody else's cameras, because I know we ran the gambit of bad Zoom camera settings when we were doing our classes, but golly. We work with what we got, and we're trying right now. So, anyway, I got distracted. My point is, Hendrick Motorsports is trying to do... They're getting better. They just need the finishes. And the driver that is doing the best, I thought Chase Elliott was going to start flying. Alex Bowman has come out of nowhere.
He's impressive.
Like, he's become the number one driver at Hendrick, in my opinion. Like, even
Which
better
I don't
than
think
Chase
anybody
Elliott.
expected.
No, because everybody expected Chase Elliott to do it. And Alex Bowman has been carrying the flag, and I'm not surprised. He had his best statistical year last year. He's already on pace to be better than that this year. And I said on my show on Tuesday, he's gone from a dark horse kind of underdog championship pick to you got to start paying attention to him. Because I'm expecting him to at least make the round of 8 when we get to the playoffs at this point. Like, he's running well enough to do it. And a lot of people have been discounting him. Keep discounting him. When he wins the championship, I'm going to be sitting here in November like I told y'all. I told y'all he was going to do it. But y'all wanted to front and say he wasn't going to do it. I started the bandwagon. Y'all were just passengers. I'm getting out ahead of this thing.
You know what that sounds a lot like, though?
What?
Is MTJ. It sounds like Martin Truex Jr. when he was in the 78, all by himself, and everybody's like, whatever. And if you think about it, they almost line up similarly. They're both very quiet, humble people. Like, you don't hear a lot from either of them unless they're really feisty all of a sudden on the radio and they decide to show it. But they're both pretty steady fighters, though. I feel like that's almost a pretty solid, equation. Obviously, Alex is quite a bit younger. But I feel like there's that similar thing because if you remember correctly, when Truex was over with the 78, obviously he had the issues with his girlfriend Sherry having cancer, and they're going through all of that. But it started with one win, and then they slowly fought back, and then all of a sudden they were winning everything and crawled their way to a championship. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a similar path, because if you think about it, everybody considered him to be a dark horse. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a similar path for Alex at this point. He's being quiet, but he's being steady. And I think once it hits with him, it's going to hit hard, and he's just going to go.
And it was even bigger for Martin Truex Jr. with that little team that little team of outsiders they made in Denver, Colorado, out there with Furniture Row, which I feel so bad that team is gone. I wish they were still around.
I miss them.
It is what it is. And the Air Titans, for some reason, are on the track. I don't think it started raining yet, but they are on the track. Are those the Air Titans? Yes, it is. I don't know why the Air Titans are out right now, but we're multitasking today on the Extra Mile because we're in a unique position where a literal race is running, and then we're talking about other races. So,
and you have the two of us who are obviously trying to watch the race at the same time.
Definitely, and my ADD behind is trying to do this, so y'all get to take a window into my mind for the next hour. So
right,
they are
if we wrap it up early, you guys will know why.
Yeah, we are pre-drying a track at this point, so we'll see how that goes.
I just want to dry things while it's raining. Gotta love it.
Which, speaking of the Air Titans, those have gotten a lot of work out over the last couple of days. They had about 1 billion Air Titans in Charlotte on Sunday. And I know that they did that mainly because, you know, with everything going on with COVID-19, you could kind of bring all of them to the racetrack. And they get this shot during the rain delay, and there are 14 Air Titans in their little formation going down the backstretch. And it catches us off guard on the USRN show. On the USRN streams, I'm talking about something or another. Then I go, that is a lot of Air Titans going down the backstretch. Like, NASCAR is not playing when it comes to the weather. And that is one of the things that they are having to deal with, is trying to drive this racetrack. And thank God somebody came up with the idea for the Air Titan. But we're going to take
I can't ever get over how loud they are.
They are very loud.
It's unbelievable. And, like, I remember one time, where were we? It was when I was working on my NASCAR team, and we were under a rain delay somewhere. And we had a really nice pit box for it, and it had, like, the covers and everything. So a couple of us decided to wait it out instead of waiting it out cramped with everybody else in, like, the hauler. We were like, well, we'll just go hang out in the pit box. And so we're like, you know, all the flaps are down, so it's kind of muggy and hot in there anyway, but we're like, whatever, we're all just kind of chilling, hanging out. And then the Air Titan went through, and for the love of God, I think all of us were about ready to blast out of the top of the pit box because it was so deafening because he was going down pit road, and we're just in this little plastic box. None of us could hear anything for a good 15 minutes. It was pretty rough.
Okay, so
but it drives the track.
We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have Annika Carter on the line. We're going to get to talk to her. She's a driver coach and a driver as well in the Gridlife Touring Cup series. We're going to find out a little bit more of that series on the other side of this break here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Vince Wright, the sports governor from the great state of Minnesota, and I want to thank you for listening to Sports Done Right. Make sure you're checking us out on all of our platforms, whether it's Spreaker.com, XSquadAffiliates.com. We're also heard on the Stewart Media and Entertainment Network, so keep it tuned here. More great things coming from Sports Done Right.
From the home plate to the nets, the end zone to the finish line, here nothing is off limits and no sport is safe. Not what it seems with your host Caitlin Seam, bringing you sports like you've never heard before. Catch me Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, right here on IE Sports Radio. The only question is, are you ready?
We're back on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio. You can catch Not What It Seems every Thursday at 5 p.m. right before this program here on the Extra Mile, or here on IE Sports Radio, rather, here on Spreaker.com. And when you are racing, a good coach can help you train your skills and make you a much better racer. They can make a good driver become great, and a great driver even better. And our guest this evening is not only a racer in her own right, she's also a driver development coach, helping drivers get the most out of their abilities. She also drives in the Gridlife Touring Car series. She's driven drift cars before. I don't think there's a car at this point that our guest hasn't driven. And we thought it would be great to bring her on to start a brand new interview series called A Good 15 Minutes. And bringing her out now, our guest for this evening, the Gridlife Touring Car Series driver, Annika Carter. Annika, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us. And I'm just going to get started. When we're looking through your profile on your website, you got this beautiful Mazda MX-5 on there. Tell us a little bit about that car. How did you acquire it, and where are you taking to go racing?
So my Miata is actually a built spec Miata, and I bought it off of someone in Ohio about, 3 years ago now. And I used it to race spec Miata with the National Autosport Association Southeast region. So we race in Georgia and South Carolina.
Okay, that's good. And you race with the Gridlife Touring Cup. This is one of the series that you run in. That is a series that we didn't really have a lot of familiarity with. I know I didn't until just recently. Tell the fans a little bit about that series. There's some unique formats that they have within the Gridlife Touring series.
Yeah, so the Gridlife Touring Cup, or we just call it GLTC, because it's a mouthful. I believe last year was its inaugural year. So Gridlife has been around for a couple years as kind of a, they call it Forza Horizon in real life. So it's drifting and road racing. Well, they've been doing time attack road racing and also just track driving. As well, at their festivals, they'll have music as well. And last year, they introduced GLTC as their first wheel-to-wheel racing series. Mm-hmm. And I decided this year that I wanted to give it a shot. So this year, I'm actually not going to be driving the Miata. I'm driving a Mustang in that series. And the way the series is structured is it's based solely off of power-to-weight ratio. So we're limited by a 12.5 to 1 power-to-weight ratio. And then we've got a couple other limits as far as, the size of the splitter and the wing that we're allowed to have, tire size, and that sort of stuff.
How does that help to keep the racing even? Because as looking at their website, they've got this little clip going on of the cars. These are some unique-looking race cars, and it almost looks like you could drive these cars to the track and then race it and then drive home. That's what it looks like the series is kind of set up to do.
Yeah, it's kind of designed to be a bit more of a budget series. So you have a lot of series where, where you might not necessarily be limited by power to weight, but you're limited instead by the modifications that you do to your car. And in those series, people go and spend just boatloads of money on making their car as fast as possible. And so the idea of GLTC is that, we're not allowing you to have 500 horsepower. So, don't even go and throw that supercharger on your car. It's keep the motor mostly stock. Just do what you can in these relatively strict rules.
So it's more of that experience of, I feel like, how a lot of even race fans, you have that argument all the time. Well, if they had the same equipment, I bet you this would turn out differently. And so kind of in that situation, you're going more to the talent of the driver than you are to what you can do to tweak the car.
Yeah, and this series, so like I said, I came from Spec Miata, and Spec Miata is actually that even more so. So the idea of a spec class is they tell us exactly what we're allowed to do to the car. So we're all running the exact same tire, the exact same suspension and sway bars, and they specify what we can do to the motor. And if you do anything past that, you're disqualified. So Spec Miata, even more so, we're all within about 8 horsepower, and it's super close pack. So for me, it's funny because GLTC is like really free. Like, wow, I get to choose what car I get to drive, and I get to choose what tire I'm going to run. But you compare it to other series, and it is stricter rules than a lot of other series.
Mm-hmm. If you're just joining us, we're talking to, and I'm going to get this right, Annika Carter.
Yeah.
I hope I got that right, because I know I messed it up the first couple of times. I apologize for
that.
That. We're talking to Annika Carter here on The Extra Mile. Annika, this is a unique series. You said it's like Forza Horizon. You described it as Forza Horizon in real life. That's how they describe it. So it feels like it's one big automotive party, but with COVID-19, the situation with COVID-19, unfortunately, fans aren't being allowed for a lot of motorsports series. What are some of the things they're doing to keep the fans, engaged? Because I see that they are still they're going to still continue some of the events just for now without fans.
Yeah. So we unfortunately had our second race of the series canceled. It was supposed to be at the National Corvette Museum in April. So obviously that race was just canceled. Our next race is next weekend at Gingerman Raceway. And originally that was supposed to be a festival. And the festival, the Gridlife festivals are the events that are, supposed to be like, quote, Forza Horizon in real life, where they've got, all the different motorsports disciplines and the music and all that, and the parties and all that. And they postponed the festival to October. And instead, we're just racing this month. So it's just the racers there, no spectators. I believe they're limiting the amount of crew we're allowed to have in as well, and we have to have our crew approved. But what they are doing is they are live streaming all the races. So you can actually watch them online on Gridlife's website. Mm-hmm. So even though you can't be there in person, you can still watch from home.
And can I just say that I'm already, like, the idea of a race car festival sounds incredible. Like, I like music festivals. That sounds fun. I've experienced the Snake Pit at the Indy 500. It can be a good time. And but adding racing to any of that, I'm like, sign me up. Music, racing, what?
Mm-hmm. My first year driving with Gridlife, I did their Gridlife South Festival, which unfortunately they're not having this year. and that's at Road Atlanta, which is right near my house. And my very first year that I did Gridlife, I was just driving in like the track day, just HBDE, but Ludacris was there playing. So you finish the driving for the night.
Wow.
Yeah, Saturday night. So you finish the driving for the night, and then they have this big stage, and they open the stage, and they usually have like 2 to 3 groups every night. And so on Saturday night, Ludacris was there playing.
That's awesome. So you get to go see some great touring car racing, and then Ludacris is playing a concert at the end of the night. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, and
Why
they have
isn't
a lot
more
of
racing
I'm
like
not,
this, guys?
I know, right? I can't say I'm very familiar in EDM, but they have a lot of big names in EDM. I can't think of the names off the top of my head just because I'm not familiar with it, but that's kind of what they do a lot of is EDM. And then last
party
year
music.
they had Soulja Boy there. Yeah, it's the party music.
Oh, fun! Now I got Superman in my head. Great.
So
that's cool. See, all right, this kind of stuff needs to be like way more advertised because I would be all about this much sooner in life if I knew that this was a thing. This is amazing.
Same, and it sounds like it sounds like something that could really connect with the younger generation that has grown up with the Forza Horizon series, which is now like its 4th or 5th game at this point. Because in the Horizon series, there's all this racing, there's the parties, there's the pageantry, all that. Now you can come and see it in real life, and we know there's a lot of racing series that are struggling. How do we get the younger fan in? It feels like the Gridlife series has a great recipe to bring people in, where you've got the great cars and the music as well.
Yeah, and that's why I really think that the series, well, Gridlife itself, I don't know how old they are, but they are a pretty young sanctioning body, and Gridlife itself just took off. And then especially the Gridlife Touring Cup, it started last year, and this year, we've got, well, we were supposed to this past weekend, or this next weekend, have a pack of, I think, like 40-something cars.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just exploded, and I think that's part of the reason is just because it appeals to people my age.
Yeah. And does it stick more in like the southern states area? And I know you mentioned that you're down in Atlanta. Is it more of a hub down here, or are they trying to spread it more across the country, or how's that work for the racing?
It actually started in the Midwest. So most of our races are Midwest. So we've got Michigan, Illinois, and Ohio and Wisconsin. And then we're supposed to have one in Kentucky. There was one in Texas that I wasn't able to make because my car hates me. And then there's one in Colorado.
Wow, okay.
There's one, I think there's Gingerman Raceway. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. Yeah. That's actually in Michigan. Caitlin, you're heading back up there soon, so you might be able to check that out.
That's the goal.
Yep.
I know, this Midwest girl's sick of this southern weather. I know,
I can't wait.
For 3 years, I have done my best down here. I moved down here because I worked in NASCAR, and then I left, and I was like, well, I'm going to stick it out down south, just give it a shot. And while there's some fun things, I feel more Canadian than I do southern when I'm down here. And I'm just like, I can't. I want cold weather. It didn't, snow didn't stick once this year. And everybody's like, oh, this winter was fantastic. I was like, it was 87 in February.
Yeah.
There's nothing fantastic about this. You guys are crazy.
Ew,
and
I can relate.
Disgusting. So I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah. I definitely relate to that. I was born in New Hampshire, and I grew up in New Hampshire, Vermont, and Colorado. And I didn't move to Georgia until I was 14. So, I mean, I have now lived in Georgia long enough that I've been completely spoiled by the weather, and so don't do as well with cold, but I still hate the summers.
Yeah, you had all those good skiing states.
It's 97 with 83% humidity, and everybody's like, this is great. And I'm like, who are you people?
Step outside and feel like you're in a sauna.
I know. A hot one, too.
Yes, yeah.
I've lived in Maryland where the summers have gotten to about 100 degrees in the shade sometimes, and I remember one summer I was in Richmond, and it was 120 degrees, and I almost had heat stroke, and it was not fun. So I will take the cold, thank you very much. Just
absolutely. The way I see it is you can add layers. You can't take off anything once you get to skin.
No, you cannot.
You know?
And plus, once you get to skin...
And that might not be socially acceptable.
Exactly. Once you get to skin in a lot of places, it's illegal. So, we've talked a lot about the Gridlife Touring Series, and I think Caitlin and I are already sold. I'm pretty sure our listeners will be as well.
Let's do this.
Let's get into Annika, the coach. When did you get into driver development coaching, and how does a racer go from, driving to helping other people learn how to race?
So I'm still pretty new at coaching. I got in about, let me think, a year and a half ago. I started coaching, and my coaching began with just trackside on-track instruction, passenger seat instruction with track day organizations. So when you have a beginner driver, they do require that you have a instructor with you. And so that's where I started, is I would work with beginner drivers. And since then, I've done some work with Primal Racing School at Atlanta Motorsports Park and with the Porsche Experience Center here in Atlanta. But for me, it was honestly a pretty easy transition. I've always enjoyed sharing my passion with other people, and I've always enjoyed teaching other people. So when I was in high school and college, I tutored a lot and stuff like that. So it's just kind of something that it's always come easy to me, and I've always enjoyed it. So to have the opportunity to get to do it with something that I'm so passionate about, I jumped at the opportunity.
So what are some...
Are you a nice coach, or are you a mean coach?
I mean, I haven't made anyone cry yet, so...
We got to get on it, man. We got to get there.
I mean, that's good, I guess. So what are some of the things you do with the drivers on track? What are you showing them when they're riding along with you, or they're driving and you're in the passenger seat, or however it works?
It really depends on their level. So if it's a beginner driver, we really call ourselves instructors instead of coaches. So when you're first starting out, we're trying to show you how you're supposed to properly take a corner. So, okay, you're going to start on the outside, you're going to turn into the apex, then you're going to go back out to the outside of the track. You're going to brake in a straight line. You're going to accelerate in a straight line, that sort of shift in a straight line, So we're just kind of teaching you, how do you drive on track? So once someone has that stuff down and you're feeling confident, they have their line, they know when and how they're supposed to do things, that's when you start becoming a coach. And when you're a coach, you're really looking to shave time off their laps. So it's, you know how to take this corner, but let's see with your car and how you drive, maybe it's best if you take this corner and turn in just, 10 feet later. Maybe that's going to work better for you. And so that's where you start playing with that sort of stuff once the driver has the basic skills.
Oh, and since you're in the car, you can hear it because a lot of it, is ear-based. When are they lifting? When are they accelerating?
Yeah.
And so if you're there with them, you can hear it. And so you're like, oh, okay, now I understand why you're slow in this turn is because you're not hitting, you're braking here instead of here because you're there so you can actually experience it with them. Oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And there is another level of coaching, which I have not gotten into yet, and that's actually data coaching. So they make data systems that record your I think they use G's, but they're recording your acceleration and your braking, and you can compare lap to lap. And so with that, coaches can actually not even ever watch you drive, be it in video or in the passenger seat. They can just look at your data and look at your data from your fast lap and be like, look, you were fastest this lap because you braked later into turn 10. So you need to keep doing that.
Technology at its finest.
Yeah, I know.
The technology...
Data's cool.
Yeah, the technology and data collection of racing has gotten a lot out... It's gotten out there in the last couple of years. So, Annika, you've driven the Miata, you're driving the Mustang this season. On your Instagram, there's pictures of you in a drift car at one point. What are some of the things you have driven, and what is one race car that you haven't driven that you would love to get behind the wheel of?
So, as far as driving on track, I've driven the Miata, the Mustang. I have a Fiat 500 Abarth. That's my daily. I drove that on track, and that car's not fast, but it is such a blast, especially it was my first experience with front-wheel drive, and you can just three-wheel through every corner, and it's amazing. And I drove my friend's 1989 GTR R33, and that was also just a blast to drive. It's right-hand drive, so, you know, you got to learn how to shift with your left hand. And I missed a lot of gears, but it was still super fun.
I think I miss a lot more than just gears. Feel like
I did. Yeah, I did miss the track. One of my first sessions out, it was a right-hand turn, and so I was getting to the left side of the track for the braking zone, and I just popped 2 tires off right as I went to brake, but I didn't spin, so I just almost did.
See, accurate. That's what I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And then the drifting, I did a couple drift days in my friend's Lexus, and I'm forgetting the I'm really bad with car models. I'm forgetting the model of it, but in his Lexus drift car with a 1J. And so that was just to be a road racer and then get into a situation where they're telling you, like, hey, get sideways and now get on the gas and keep it there. It's just so counterintuitive.
Yeah, because usually when you go sideways, the thought is to not make it do that.
Correct.
To keep doing it in a more aggressive angle.
You build these instincts for the second you feel that back end kick out, you're correcting. And so when I was learning to drift, it was like I'd get the back end out and then, like, just be back straight, and then back end out and then back straight. And so I was doing this with Kelsey Rollins, who's a professional drifter, and my friend Marco, and they were both yelling at me. They're like, hey, hit the gas. Keep going sideways. Keep it skidding.
That's the point.
Yeah. As far as a race car that I want to drive, I really can't pinpoint one. If we're talking like a race series, I really want to get into like my dream series would be something like GT3, GT4. So some sort of, you know, production based racing. And I'd love to do endurance. So some of the, you know, the Petit Le Mans or just some of these 12 and 24 hour races. I think that I am a better consistent for a long time driver than I am, you know, a driver who's able, like, I'm not really a driver who's able to put down like one flyer, but I'm good at being fast for, you know, I've done a 3-hour stint before.
What I think's really cool about you even saying that is that I feel like there's such an underrating of the side series that aren't IndyCar, NASCAR, Formula One in the world, and they kind of get overlooked. And so, to me, just to hear you say that as a driver that's looking to further her career, for your, you know, your goal, like your ultimate goal, not to be one of the big three, I honestly think is incredible. Because everybody's like, yeah, I want to try to get into NASCAR, or I want to try to get into IndyCar, or what have you. And so for you to be like, specifically, I want to go into endurance racing, I'm pretty sure I would be excellent at this, and I want to kick ass here. Like, to me, that's amazing, because you're like, you know what you're good at, and you know how to excel in it, and you are, you have the eye on the bullseye there. And I think that that's so cool because it's so overlooked, but it's still, it's all incredible.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, if someone were to offer me, not that this would ever happen, but someone to be like, hey, drive my NASCAR, I would do it. But if someone were to say, hey, drive my IndyCar or Formula One car, like, I actually have zero interest in open wheel racing. Like, zero. None. I would never do IndyCar or Formula One.
I think I'm there as well. I'm kind of there as well with, like, MotoGP, where I'm like, hey, that's fun to watch. I am never climbing behind the wheel of one of those, ever. I need a lot more metal around me. No, I need a lot more metal around me if I'm getting in a race car. If I hit a wall at 200 miles per hour, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like,
see, in my head, I'm like, I'm far too aggressive, and you can't touch wheels. I would be, Caitlin, do you see what you did in the third car? Look! I just by myself. Like, they would kick me out so quickly. They'd be like, you're not supposed to touch. I'm going to touch. I'm going to bang them. It's not, it's going to happen. I'm like, that's not.
Oh my gosh.
And bikes are worse because
they would kick me out before it started.
Yeah, and bikes are worse because it's just you when you hit the ground. Like, there's nothing saving you. That's just you and the leather. And that is not okay. That is not okay.
It's a finesse that I certainly was never born with.
So we've got about 5 minutes left in the program, so we're going to start wrapping up here. Before we go, Annika, What is one thing you would say to anyone that is getting started in their racing career right now?
It's easier than you think. So when you say getting started, I imagine I have a lot of people who message me asking me, like, that's so cool, I wish I could do it. You can. There's no reason you can't. I mean, I am the general manager of a fine dining restaurant, so it's not like I'm sitting here with a bunch of money to blow on my racing. And so that's kind of the biggest excuse. People are like, oh, I can't afford it. Well, if it's what you want to do, you can do it. It's one of those, like, if there's a will, there's a way type of thing. And so I always encourage people, honestly, every time I'm asked a question like this, I always encourage people, like, reach out. If you want to get into racing, if you want to get into track driving, whatever it be, like, reach out to me because I'm happy to help. I want to see more people get into this sport because it's cool and, you know, it's an incredible community, and I always want to see more people join it.
And there are apparently series where they have music festivals and races at the same time.
Yes.
Like, literally, that's what I took away the most here, is that I'm not living my best life right now. There's better ways to live, and I'm not doing it. Also, mini shout out as the fact that I am currently a bartender and server, that when you said a manager, I was like, oh, you're in the same industry. You are a woman after my own heart already. I'm just saying. I'm a lifelong fan.
Oh, yes,
already.
the customer service industry.
Now,
love it.
Now we need to do is
It's
get...
not always right. We're just good at smiling.
Yeah.
Now what we gotta do is get Caitlin behind the wheel of a car, and we'll be complete the circle. So, if you guys want to see Annika and the rest of the Gridlife Touring Car, well, actually, you can't really go there, but if you want to watch it on their website, June 4th through the 7th at Gingerman Raceway, they will be streaming on grid.life. That is their website. Go over there, check that out, give them a shout out, because this is an awesome series. Forza Horizon in real life. What else is there to say? Go check it out. June 4th through 7th. I mean, we're in the house anyway, so you might as well. If you want to learn more about Annika's racing career, want to get some private coaching, contribute, or find out more about her, head over to annikasracing.com. You can find out more about her and follow her on Instagram as well. That is, as I'm sitting here at the front of the computer. Okay, Instagram is acting up, so we will deal with that later, but you can go to her website and find those links. Annika, thank you so much. We're right near the end of the show, so stay right there. We'll give you a proper goodbye off the air before we close up, because we're about to close up shop for the Extra Mile tonight. With Nearest the Win picks, that is our racing little fantasy game we do here on the program, where we like to pick the winners for the NASCAR races and IndyCar and Formula One as well. It's been NASCAR heavy so far this season because NASCAR is the only one doing anything right now. So the upcoming race is Bristol. That means a lot of beating, banging, a lot of bad tempers, and a lot of possible payback. Looking at you, Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott. Annika, do you follow NASCAR a lot?
Pardon me?
I said, have you checked out any NASCAR recently?
I don't really follow NASCAR.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
gotta admit.
That's fine. I just thought I'd ask. It was right there in the flow of the question. That's fine. So Caitlin and I will make the picks, and if you want to join us in the Nearest the Win game as well, hashtag Nearest the Win on Twitter with your picks. You got up to the start of the engines on Sunday to get the race in, or Monday, or whenever they decide to run these things, because Mother Nature hates us. Caitlin, who you got?
You know, I'm digging the new little war that we have going on. So I think on a bump and run win style, Kyle Busch is going to take it. We got to fuel this fire a little bit more.
Well, we're going to see if the Extra Mile jinx is still in effect, because I'm picking him as well.
Yeah.
So
now he will wreck now on lap 1.
So we're both picking Kyle Busch to win. That means Kyle Busch is going in the wall. Sorry, Kyle fans. Just want to apologize.
You're welcome, Chase Elliott fans.
Yeah, because now Chase is probably going to end up winning. So, that is it for this episode of The Extra Mile. I want to thank Annika for joining us this evening. Next week, the guests continue. Amber Balsan will be joining us. She was on the show Racing Wise this past year. We're going to talk about her racing, and she's climbing into a midget sprint car this season. We're going to talk to her about that. We'll also get you updated on the IndyCar season as they're getting ready to start their year. And we got some updates in F1 as well. We'll talk about those next week. The current update of the NASCAR race in Charlotte, the NASCAR Uniforms 500, is rain delay. We're going to get off here now and check out the rest of that. Annika, thank you for joining us. We'll give you a proper goodbye at the end of this. Remember, if you've missed any episode of any iSports Radio show, check us out on Spotify, YouTube, other places where podcasts can be heard. Check out our social medias on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and the website, www.isportsradio.com. That being said, for Caitlin, I'm Daryl. This has been The Extra Mile, and we will see you on the next green flag. Good night, everybody.